4, 3.
And welcome, folks, back here on the Michigan Insider and a special edition of the Michigan Basketball Insider. On the Michigan Insider, you know, we do this on special occasions, and this is indeed one of them, as Michigan is in the Big Ten tournament. They play tonight against the Purdue Boilermakers, the nightcap in Big Ten tournament action. And joining me as he does, an All-American at the University of Michigan out of Clarkston High School. He was a guy who was a big timer and was a first-round draft pick out of the University of Michigan, played 10 years in the National Basketball Association, and since retiring has been one of the best basketball commentators in the land, both as a Pistons commentator and, of course, doing college basketball, doing the A-10 tournament now. And, of course, you hear him every week here on the Michigan Basketball Insider. I introduce him first as my friend. He is my guy, my big fella, Timmy Mack, but you know him as Tim McCormick. He is with us now on the Michigan Basketball Insider. Tim, good morning. How are you?
I'm fantastic. I love this time of year, Sam, and can't wait for the game tonight.
Yeah, I hear you, man. Michigan, it has been a season of really exciting start to the Dusty May era, ascending to higher heights than many people expected, a 3 seed in the Big Ten tournament. And yet they limped down the stretch, Tim, and losing their last three games, 4 of the last 6, and basically culminating in that loss to Michigan State, where they shot the worst shooting game of the season, 3 for 24 from 3-point range. Didn't send them into the Big Ten tournament on a high note. As a matter of fact, on a low note.
Exactly. And when you if you're trying to look for positives, they have the double bye. They have 14 more wins than last year. I don't know if that's accurate, but the positives outweigh the negatives. But sometimes you just remember the end. And March Madness is really, really pretty incredible, and the tournaments are so much fun. I think that Michigan is at a disadvantage playing a Purdue team that played yesterday and had to find a way to win somehow. I'm at the A-10 tournament all week broadcasting games, and what I keep seeing is that the worst seeded teams are playing great because they're used to the NBA arena, and they're in the locker room. They're used to the nets. They hit shots yesterday in their game. They build confidence. They've got a little swagger. They're going in expecting to win. And for the team that's the double bye, it's difficult to all of a sudden jumpstart your game and play your best basketball. But that's the job at hand. And Michigan has some massive issues that they've got to correct. And I'm mainly concerned because, when they lost to Illinois, Maryland, and Michigan State, in each of those situations, they were coming in with the job of, okay, let's jumpstart this. We've got to turn this around. We're not playing well. We've got some flaws, and it hasn't happened in any of those games. And so I'm starting to think that maybe the flaws that this team have are inherent to who they are and what they will be throughout the tournament. Wolf and Golden, phenomenal. Some of the best big men in Michigan basketball history. And the perimeter guys can't shoot. Those are things that we've seen. And because we have all kinds of empirical data that shows that they're not good shooting teams, and they turn it over at an alarming rate, and they don't hit the defensive boards well, like that's kind of who they are. And I don't think they can just flip a switch and change that.
Yeah, it's a tough circumstance that they find themselves in, because most of the time when a team is struggling offensively, struggling to shoot the way they are, you want to say, okay, lock in defensively, you can get some offense off of that, and that's really not in the DNA. And so it leaves you in a bit of a quandary, if you will, for Michigan right now, specific players, especially a guy like Trey. That's what, okay, you would like for that to be the case with him. Hey, it's not going for you offensively. Let's lock in defensively and see if that can get you going, get you flowing offensively. Let's go back to Michigan State really briefly before we dive into tonight and see if we can talk about ways in your career that maybe you were able to get a mental reset, Tim. But it was their worst shooting game of the season, 3 for 24 from 3-point range. But really, I think the game was over at halftime because they had 11 turnovers.
And that's really it's not the mark of a good basketball team to be careless with a ball like that. And some of the passes were just unconscionable. The scouting report against Michigan, I'm sure Tom Izzo and his staff pointed this out, is be on your toes at all times because they will throw, half court type passes that you can just pick off. And when you let a team that doesn't shoot well get layups and dunks to start the game, the crowd's going crazy. Michigan State's not a good shooting team. We've seen it all year long, and they were like 38% from three because they felt good about themselves. They'd already made plenty of buckets. Michigan's big guys are better than Michigan State's by a lot. And we kind of expected that Michigan's bigs would be better, but Michigan State's guards are better than Michigan's. And I didn't think throughout a lot of the season that was accurate, but Richardson, Fears, Akins, Holloman, those guys have improved. And I have to give Tom Izzo and his staff a lot of credit because it's not easy to coach up mediocre shooters. And he's done it. He's built their confidence. And so much in the past, Tom Izzo would go ballistic. He would look like he hates his players and he's yelling and he's on them. I feel like he's really backed off a lot and he's become more supportive because he knows these guys from Michigan State are playing as well as they can possibly play.
Yeah, he definitely has found something in the rotation. Holloman coming off the bench has been a revelation of late, at least against Michigan. Has certainly been a thing. Like you said, to make non-shooters in the shooters, at least in that game, that's really worked. But I come back to one of the things that I really talked about, turning players that turn defense, playing really good defense in the offense. I think Michigan State has really thrived off of that. They got threes in transition.
Yeah. Can I say one other thing, Sam? Is that major kudos to Michigan State. Like I don't find it a habit of mine to root for them, but this is a team maybe more than any Michigan State team that I've seen that I've really embraced. Like I find myself making sure I tune in to watch their games like I do Michigan's games because they're from our state. And I just really like what they do. Man, they're hard-nosed on defense. They follow the scouting report. What they do makes sense to me. They're very unselfish. Like a lot of teams today cannot pull off a 10-man rotation because players want to get on the court. They want more NIL money. If they don't get it, they're going to transfer. Like these guys have stayed with their program. They've gotten better. And I do think from a skill standpoint, they've maximized who they are and what they do. So, and kudos to them.
The one I don't know if I could go that far, Tim. But what I would say is I would like to borrow one aspect of what they do. And I haven't talked to anybody in the program about this, but what I sense is one, and you being a former player and you being a coach, you be coaching your son and all of that. When you have young players, a lot of times you see their offense affect their defense. Mm-hmm. Offense going well, they play really good defense. Offense goes poorly, it affects their defense. Now, Trey's not a young player per se, but I feel like, this is my opinion, just getting back on that topic and kind of just looking at the matchup, looking at Dusty kind of having him on the bench and going with the younger guys at a portion of the game where he still had some of the older guys on the floor. It just felt like he saw some things on the defensive end of the floor he didn't like. That's how I felt about it. And I think that part of his game is the part that really is kind of getting the coaching staff's goat as much, if not more so, than some of the things we're seeing on the offensive end. Because offense can be fleeting, but hey, that's got to be constant on the defensive end. And I really feel like some of his offensive struggles are affecting him on the defensive end of the floor. Do I know that? I haven't heard that from anybody inside the program, but it just feels that way cumulatively to me, that the more he struggled offensively, the more it seemed it has affected him on the other end of the floor.
Well, it's not just Trey. Namari Burnett and Reuben Jones are your starters, and they were like 4 for 16 from the field. And at times, like sometimes when a guy misses an open shot, I want him to show that, man, I blew that. That should have been a bucket. I've got to make that play. Like I almost felt like at the Michigan State broadcast that they're understanding that they're just, they're not good shooters. They're not playing well. They've lost their confidence. They're down. They're beat up. And I haven't even mentioned Roddy Gale. Like, how can you play 25 minutes and not take a shot? It's like they accepted the fact that they're not good shooters or they're not playing well now. And that can't be. And maybe that's what I saw. And I'm sure that up close and personal, Dusty May probably saw that too, because Michigan's guards were they were beaten men. There was nothing that they could do because Michigan State's guards were tougher and they were more physical and they were more confident. And so I don't know how you change that, Sam. If you're not confident, you can say, come on, you're good, you can do this. But in your heart, you know if you're not playing well and you're not really sure how to get out of it.
Yeah, one of the things that I was kind of thinking about is how do you get guys going? Yeah, I really know. I because you kind of are who you are 30 games into the season. What can you run for different guys to kind of get them free? They don't really have shooters like that where you kind of running off of some staggers and kind of get them free. But maybe that's something you can do for Trey, maybe.
Yeah.
To try something a little different. He's maybe the one exception to that rule, even though he's your point guard. Maybe that's something that you can do for him and to try to get him a few looks early in the game to try to get him rolling.
Well, if Dusty May called me and said, Tim, what do we do? Here's what I see, and I know that would never happen, and I would never have advice that I would actually give him because he knows 1,000% more basketball than I do. But what has happened is the success of Lad Golden and Danny Wolf has actually morphed into a disadvantage for the guards. When Hunter Dickinson was at Michigan, there were times that we felt like, man, the team is really stagnant because the ball goes into Hunter. He dribbles 8 times. He shoots his little jump hook. Everybody else is just standing around watching. And I feel like Donaldson and Gale and all of them, they're running actions on the perimeter in which there's really no opportunity for them to do anything. And it all ends up into the low post or Danny Wolf driving and trying to create. So to me, Michigan is really stagnant offensively, and the guards are standing and watching the big guys go to work. And at this point, that's probably smart because the guards aren't getting anything done. But what I would try to do is, number one, I would get them to play better defense, more attack style, try to play in transition so the guards can get downhill and do something on the break. Also offensively, I would run my sets in which everybody's handling the ball. Like I'm a big fan of 5-pass possessions in which when you bring the ball down, you don't really go to work until everybody gets a touch. And then you flow into whatever you can that's going to spread the court and let your guards try to make plays. That's what I think. And Sam, earlier you asked, like, what circumstance have I been through where I was lacking confidence and I needed something extra? My senior year, it was actually my junior year. I left 1 year early. but we were playing at Northwestern, and we knew that if we won, we would be in the NCAA tournament, and if we lost, we would go to the NIT. It was my birthday. I had a bad game. I made some decisively horrible plays at the end of the game, and we lost to Northwestern, and I was devastated. I knew that I was not going to play in the NCAA tournament that year. And the next day, I did the only thing that I knew that I could do. We found out we're going to the NIT, and practice was at 3, and I got there at 2, and I ran stadium stairs, and I ran suicides, and I felt like I needed to go back to work, because that's not the way I wanted my career to end up. And it was therapeutic for me, and made me feel like, okay, I can't control everything on the court, but I can control my work ethic. I can focus on mental toughness. And when my teammates come in here, I want them to see me running and sweating and working as a role model. Like, we're not going to quit on this season. And that's where I think Namari Burnett and some of the veteran players need to really step up and set a standard.
Yeah, if you look back, one of the things I think about is how Michigan started that game against Purdue in Ann Arbor. They were shell-shocked, much like they were down in West Lafayette, and the guy who got them going was Trey. Now, he got them going basically doing it on his own. He was in attack mode offensively. Now, he is not in the same frame of mind offensively. I don't know if he could muster that versus them having to do like what you said. You coming down, and it's more of a collective effort where it's everyone gets a touch. We're getting it off a flow, as opposed to one guy just is in an attack mode like Trey was in that contest. But man, that was a guy who was a dog that day, and they got him going early. Now, he wasn't able to sustain that, but to me, I think it's a big key in a game where I feel like it's going to be tough to I'm not ruling out Vlad Golden having a really good game. I'm not ruling that out. But boy, for 70 of the 80 minutes, Tim, he has not played well in this matchup. And so if I'm just basing it on that, it's hard to say that Vlad's going to come out here and have a hell of a game. So if Michigan's going to win this game, these other guys had better bring some real stuff to the table tonight, or it's hard to say Michigan's going to come out on top in this contest.
In that game, it seemed like Purdue was really in control for a lot of the minutes. And I'm not a huge Purdue advocate. That they've lost, I think, 5 of their last 7 games. Mm-hmm. And so after Michigan beat them, they went on a little bit of a tailspin. That was a big game for them, very important. And Trey Kaufman-Renn's an all-league standout. There's no doubt about it. And Braden Smith could be the best guard in the Big Ten. But after that, I'm not overwhelmed at all with their roster. Fletcher Lawyer's their number 3 option, but he's had a lot of games where he hasn't done a whole lot. Is Caleb first? Are you going to match him up with Danny Wolf? That seemed like a mismatch to me. And so I think this will be a really close game. Purdue is not playing great basketball. They're not a Big Ten championship caliber team. And I'm feeling like there's got to be a bounce back here. One of those games that all of a sudden Michigan makes a couple threes. We've been saying that for about a month now, but if Michigan can make a couple threes and then they'll start playing better defense and they'll run harder in transition, and they'll hug each other and they'll high five and everybody will be smiling, and that's what happens. But I'm just not sure I see a deep run from this team. I think they could play really well against Purdue and win, but I'm not seeing a Big Ten tournament championship.
Yeah, I know we got to wrap things up, Tim, so you can get back to your A10 prep. Normally I would say a long layoff is a bad thing for a team, and the team that got a chance to get a game under his belt has an advantage. But for Michigan, who had played a lot of games in a small span of time against really good teams who seemed mentally and physically fatigued and was struggling confidence-wise. I actually think the layoff was the most beneficial thing to them, rather than getting on the court and playing. They needed the time. Now the question is, how did they as a coaching staff use it? But I would rather them have 4 or 5 days between games to try to get to decompress a bit and find a reset to be able to get back on the court and rediscover it. Just a couple weeks ago, Tim, they were on top of the Big Ten world, so to speak, and they were first place, kind of saying, "Hey, we're the best in the league." So again, I don't know what buttons you push, but they just need to find that place that they were in, and hopefully the coaching staff can figure out whatever is that psychological point or psychological button to push to get them back to where they were just a couple of weeks ago.
There are so many teams in college basketball that in March are beaten down. They're frustrated. The coaches have yelled at them. They've been in the weight room. They've been trying so hard, and they're just worn out. I think it'd be a great idea to take the Michigan team, put them on a bus, take them to the CCRB or the IM building. Give them some old T-shirts that, no practice uniforms or anything. Let's just go play basketball. Let's run up and down the court, have fun. That's when guys enjoy the game the most. And I know that would never happen, but that's the way Michigan should play: free, loose, have some fun. Don't worry about the scouting report. Just play defense as hard as you can, box out, be smart, make the 100% sure passes, and then build off any excitement and success that you have.
Well, to close things out, Tim, I remember early in the season, we were talking about how well they were playing defensively, and there was a feeling that if you weren't giving a certain amount of effort on the floor before kind of like the roles and minutes were really established, you were coming off the floor. Like if I'm not getting this kind of effort defensively, you're out. I think that needs to be the standard tonight. Like, hey, if we aren't getting in on the defensive end to this degree effort wise, and if you aren't locked in, by effort, I'm not just talking about intensity. I'm talking about, man, being locked into your assignment too. You got to come out. You got to come out.
I agree. I completely agree. And you know what? Hold people accountable for making some of those sloppy passes. And Trey Donaldson does it more than anybody else. Danny Wolf throws it out, throws it to the other team too. But I just think it's the passion. After my seasons at Michigan, I have such great memories of going to the IM building the day after the season's over and playing with the Michigan football players. I remember playing with Anthony Carter and Keith Bostic and Dave Hall and all these guys that I really idolized and loved spending time with. And we would just play basketball. And it always amazed me how hard they would play. It wasn't their sport. It wasn't their first love, but they went after people in basketball. And that's the kind of passion that Michigan needs to beat Purdue tonight.
Yeah, it's crazy how that can get your offense going. Defense can get you in the flow and get you going offensively. Well, Tim, appreciate you, man. I know you got to get back to the A10 tournament and your prep over there. Appreciate you for another edition of the Michigan Basketball Insider. Do you care to take a stab at a prediction?
I would think that Michigan's going to win this game, and it's going to be 75-70.
Okay. From your lips, folks, there it is. Timmy back. Michigan wins tonight over Purdue. That's going to do it for this edition of the Michigan Basketball Insider. And with that, we'll get to a break. Be back on the other side here on the Michigan Insider on the Big 1050 WTKA, online at the Big1050.com.
And we are clear.
All right, Tim. Appreciate you, my
guys.
friend. And
Enjoy the game.
Enjoy my hometown.
I shall. It's going to be fun.
All right. See you, Tim.
All right. See you guys later.